The internet is absolutely spinning because this whole funeral announcement has hip-hop in a complete meltdown. Jay Blackman caught him in 4K, and what got exposed is straight insane. Everybody thought they knew the full story about J. Cole's Fall Off album announcement. He dropped a quiet trailer in the middle of the night, fans celebrated, critics analyzed. That was the version everyone repeated across social media. But now, Jay Blackman just unleashed footage that got the whole narrative twisting. Under his ruthless surveillance operation, Cole walks straight into what's being called a digital crime scene. At exactly Disc 2, Track 2, the vault cracked wide open. What spilled out wasn't just a song, it was a confession from beyond the grave. This wasn't music anymore, this was a funeral in reverse. Let me break this down because what Jay Blackman uncovered is absolutely mind-blowing. In this leaked track, you can clearly hear J. Cole describing his entire life backwards from death to birth. And for anyone who doesn't know, this isn't some creative metaphor. Cole painted himself inside a hearse, being dragged toward a church, with his own grandchildren sobbing over his coffin. The very first words of this track positioned him as already gone, already buried, already mourned. But it gets even crazier. Online detectives took this to a whole new level, digging into every single detail like they on some full-blown CSI mission. They started studying the lyrical structure, the reversed timeline, the imagery of flowers flying upward from his grave, tears literally defying gravity, a soul clawing backwards through time itself. Frame-by-frame analysis of the announcement trailer shows Cole sitting in darkness, surrounded by what looks like funeral flowers. Fans online turned into full investigators. They're slowing down frames, zooming into reflections, comparing his body language to past interviews, and folks online swear this was planned for years. Some users on Twitter claim they found Easter eggs dating back to 2019 that hinted at this exact concept. One thread got over 47,000 retweets, breaking down how Cole's last 3 album covers allegedly formed a sequence pointing toward death imagery. Think about it. The track doesn't just sound clever, it's engineered. Every single bar mirrors the previous one in reverse. It's a lyrical time machine, proving one undeniable thing. J. Cole wasn't flexing technical skill, he was delivering a warning. Fans froze when they realized what they were hearing. Critics went completely silent. The hip-hop community didn't know whether to breathe or sprint in the opposite direction. TMZ just dropped additional footage showing Cole's team scrambling after the leak went viral. Sources close to the situation purportedly said, quote, "Nobody was supposed to hear that version yet." But Jay Blackman had his digital eyes everywhere, and when Cole blinked, Blackman was already 10 steps ahead, recording everything. The leaked audio quality suggests this came from an internal studio session, not a polished release. That means somebody on the inside either betrayed Cole or this was an intentional controlled leak to test public reaction. And honestly, that's what makes this whole thing so wild. If this was accidental, Cole's team is in full panic mode trying to control damage. But if this was planned, then Cole just executed one of the most calculated psychological operations in rap history. He didn't announce an album, he announced his own death and forced the entire culture to confront mortality, legacy, and what happens when a king decides to remove his own crown before anyone can take it. Let's keep it real. The symbolism is straight haunting. Cole rapped about seeing his son vanish backwards into the womb, his marriage unraveling in reverse, fame rotting from the inside out like decaying fruit, every achievement, every milestone, every moment of glory getting erased as time moved backwards. This wasn't poetic, this was brutal. A father, a husband, a superstar, all being systematically deleted from existence one reversed moment at a time. The internet is absolutely buzzing with theories. Some fans believe Cole is retiring, others think this is a concept album exploring mortality, but a growing number of people online swear this is something way darker. They're saying Cole is performing a ritual sacrifice of his old identity before emerging as something completely different. One viral TikTok breakdown with over 2.3 million views claims Cole studied ancient rebirth ceremonies and embedded those principles into the track structure. Online detectives discovered Cole allegedly spent time studying Egyptian mythology, specifically the story of Osiris dying and being reborn. They found interviews from 2021 where Cole mentioned being fascinated by transformation through symbolic death. Fans are connecting dots everywhere, creating elaborate conspiracy boards linking his lyrics to ancient texts. Whether that's real analysis or internet paranoia, the fact remains that millions of people are dissecting every syllable of this leaked track like it's a sacred scripture. And it gets worse for anyone who doubted Cole's artistic vision. The second track that leaked, the one screaming "Who the F is you?" completely shifted the energy. The first track was reflective, mournful, almost meditative, but that second track came out swinging with pure aggression. It wasn't contemplation anymore, it was war mode. Cole sounded like he was challenging every single person who ever questioned his position in hip-hop. That tonal shift has people convinced this album is going to be a double-sided experience. Death and resurrection, reflection and destruction, peace and absolute chaos. Now let's get into the motive, because this is where everything starts clicking into place and the whole situation becomes crystal clear. J. Cole has been dealing with something very specific for a long time now, a pressure that most artists never face, the weight of perfection. For 10 straight years, insiders claim Cole locked himself in what they're calling a creative bunker, obsessively chasing what sources describe as the perfect last album.
He wasn't making songs. He was designing his own legacy coffin. The title, The Fall Off, isn't about decline. It's not about losing relevance or fading from the spotlight. It's about a controlled detonation. Cole wasn't afraid of falling. He was meticulously planning every detail of how he would fall, when he would fall, and what the impact would mean for hip-hop culture when he finally hit the ground. Think about Cole's entire career trajectory. He came up as the thoughtful, introspective alternative to the flashy, materialistic rap dominating the 2010s. He built his reputation on being the conscious rapper, the storyteller, the one who cared more about lyrics than luxury. That reputation became both his greatest strength and his heaviest burden. Every album had to mean something. Every verse had to teach something. Every bar had to prove something. That kind of pressure hits different when you've been carrying it for over a decade. Back in his peak, people say Cole was pulling in massive streaming numbers, selling out arenas worldwide, earning critical acclaim from every major publication. But with that success came suffocating expectations. Fans didn't just want good music, they wanted perfect music. They wanted every album to be a masterpiece, every feature to be legendary, every single word to carry the weight of prophecy. Meanwhile, other artists in his generation were evolving, experimenting, taking risks, and sometimes failing publicly without the same level of judgment. But Cole existed in this weird space where failure wasn't allowed. One misstep and the internet would declare him overrated. One weak verse and critics would question his entire legacy. That environment doesn't create art, it creates paralysis. Sources close to Cole's inner circle reportedly told TMZ that he scrapped the entire Fall Off album at least 4 different times between 2018 and 2023. 4 complete albums worth of material just deleted, thrown away, deemed not good enough. Imagine working on something for years, pouring your soul into it, only to decide it still doesn't meet the impossible standard you've set for yourself. That's not regular artist perfectionism, that's something way deeper. Put all that together and it starts looking like the perfect recipe for an artist who decides the only way to escape the prison of perfection is to kill the version of himself that's trapped inside it. If old Cole dies, then new Cole can be born without the baggage, without the expectations, without the pressure to be the savior of conscious hip-hop. And it gets worse for people who think this is just creative dramatics. Multiple music journalists have reported that Cole became increasingly isolated during the album creation process. He stopped doing interviews, limited his public appearances, cut off contact with several longtime collaborators. Friends in the industry allegedly expressed concern about his mental state, saying he seemed obsessed with legacy, mortality, and how history would remember him. One anonymous producer who claimed to work on early fall-off sessions said Cole would spend hours debating single word choices, convinced that one wrong syllable could ruin his entire reputation. That level of obsession isn't healthy, it's suffocating. When an artist reaches that point, something has to break. Either the artist breaks or the persona breaks. Cole apparently chose to break the persona by literally announcing its death. The financial angle also plays into this. Cole isn't struggling for money, he's set for life. His Dreamville label is successful, his investments are solid, so this isn't about chasing commercial success. It's about artistic legacy and the psychological weight of being viewed as one of the greats while still alive to hear both the praise and the criticism. Some artists thrive on that feedback loop, others get crushed by it. There's also the competitive element. Kendrick Lamar dropped Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers and openly discussed therapy, trauma, and personal growth. Drake continues dominating commercial success without the same pressure to be conscious. Artists like Tyler, the Creator, completely reinvented themselves multiple times. Cole watched all this evolution happening around him while feeling locked into one specific identity. The conscious rapper box became a cage. So when you connect all these pieces, the motive becomes obvious. J. Cole wasn't announcing an album, he was announcing a liberation. By symbolically killing himself on the first track, he's giving himself permission to be anything on the tracks that follow. He's destroying expectations before they can destroy him. The funeral wasn't for hip-hop, it was for the version of himself that existed solely to meet other people's expectations. That kind of fall-off hits different, because it's not really falling, it's jumping with intention and purpose.
But here's the part that really hits different and gets to the core of why this situation is so heavy. The one thing that got caught up in the middle of all this wasn't some industry beef or competitive rivalry. It was Cole's relationship with his own humanity. This man barely gets to be a regular person anymore. He barely gets to make mistakes, show weakness, or exist outside the character people built around him. And he ended up in this terrifying creative situation because the weight of being perfect suffocated everything else. That's honestly messed up when you think about it. The leaked footage and lyrics show someone genuinely struggling with the gap between who they are and who everyone expects them to be. You can hear it in the tone, the weariness, the exhaustion of maintaining an image that doesn't leave room for evolution or growth. That's somebody's real life behind the celebrity status, and they're dealing with psychological trauma over a situation they arguably created but never intended to become a prison. Listen to how he described his grandchildren crying at his funeral. That's not just clever wordplay. That's a man confronting his own mortality and wondering what his legacy actually means. Will his music matter more than the moments he missed with family while obsessing over perfection? Will future generations remember the art or the human being who created it? Those aren't surface-level rap bars. That's existential crisis being broadcasted through hip-hop. And the reversed timeline imagery makes it even more painful. Watching your life unhappen forces you to confront every choice, every sacrifice, every moment where you chose career over personal connection. Cole watching his son disappear back into the womb isn't horror movie imagery. It's a father's guilt visualized. It's the recognition that time spent chasing perfection is time stolen from the people who love you regardless of your achievements. Hip-hop culture doesn't usually create space for this kind of vulnerability. Artists are supposed to be invincible, confident, always winning. But Cole ripped that facade completely off and exposed the raw nerve underneath. The emotional weight of that choice is massive. He didn't just make himself vulnerable, he made every artist who's ever struggled with similar pressures feel seen. That's powerful, but also terrifying, because once you expose that level of truth, you can't take it back. The fan reactions have been equally emotional. Thousands of people sharing their own stories about perfectionism, about feeling trapped by expectations, about wanting to kill their old selves to become something new. Cole's symbolic funeral became a mirror for everyone who's ever felt suffocated by who they're supposed to be. That connection between artist and audience transcends regular music. It becomes therapy. It becomes collective healing. But it also means Cole is now carrying not just his own emotional weight, but the weight of everyone who related to his pain. Some of the comments under the leaked track are absolutely heartbreaking. People thanking Cole for making them feel less alone. Others expressing concern for his mental health. A few even sharing suicide prevention resources, worried that the death imagery might reflect something more dangerous than artistic metaphor. Whether Cole intended to spark that level of emotional response or not, he's now responsible for it. That's the double-edged sword of radical vulnerability in art. Now this is where things get even more interesting, because Jay Blackman didn't just catch one track. His surveillance operation uncovered multiple pieces of evidence that paint a way bigger picture. Let's go deeper into what actually got exposed, because the layers to this situation are absolutely wild. First, the technical analysis of Cole's vocal delivery on the leaked track reveals something fascinating. Audio engineers online ran the track through spectral analysis software and discovered Cole's voice was processed to sound increasingly distorted as the song progressed backward through time. At the funeral scene, his voice is clear and present, but as the timeline reverses toward birth, the vocal manipulation makes him sound more distant, more ethereal, almost ghost-like. That level of production detail suggests this wasn't a rough demo. This was intentionally crafted with precision. Fans swear they can hear background vocals that sound like gospel choirs singing in reverse. When you play those sections backwards, meaning forward in actual time, the choirs are singing what sounds like traditional funeral hymns. That means Cole and his production team recorded gospel music, reversed it, then rapped over the reversed version so that when the whole song plays backward, everything aligns correctly. The mathematical precision required for that kind of production is insane. This wasn't inspiration, this was calculation. Online detectives found even more evidence by comparing the leaked track to Cole's previous work. They created spreadsheets, I'm not making this up, actual spreadsheets, tracking every album's themes, cover art color schemes, and lyrical references to time and mortality. According to their research, Cole has been planting seeds for this concept since at least his 2018 KOD album. References to death, rebirth, cycles, and time appear with increasing frequency across his work. If their analysis is accurate, Cole has been building toward this moment for nearly 7 years. TMZ dropped additional reports about Cole's recording process during the fall-off sessions. Sources claim he worked primarily at night, often alone, insisting on complete darkness in the studio. He allegedly requested that all clocks be removed from the recording space and refused to acknowledge what day or time it was during creative sessions. That kind of temporal disorientation while creating music about reverse time isn't coincidence. That's method acting for audio production. Security footage that Jay Blackman supposedly obtained shows Cole arriving at the studio in different vehicles, sometimes wearing disguises, taking elaborate routes to avoid being followed. For someone who's not known for paranoid behavior, that represents a dramatic shift. Either Cole was hiding the project from label executives who might interfere, or he was performing psychological preparation rituals to enter the creative headspace required for such dark material. Either explanation is concerning. Let's talk about the second leaked track again, because that tonal shift is crucial evidence. The track titled, or at least being called, Who the F Is You, represents the other side of the death ritual. If the first track is the symbolic death, this second track is the violent resurrection. Cole's delivery is aggressive, confrontational, almost angry. He's not questioning his own identity. He's challenging everyone who thinks they know who he is. Lyrical analysis reveals Cole name-dropping critics, referencing old beefs, and directly addressing people who counted him out. But here's what's fascinating. He does it all without using actual names. Every reference is coded, metaphorical, or symbolic. That suggests Cole wants to address his detractors without giving them the satisfaction of being directly acknowledged. It's aggressive but calculated, angry but controlled. That duality matches perfectly with someone who just symbolically killed their old self and is now defending their right to become something new. Fans online compared this leaked track to previous Cole diss tracks and found interesting patterns. His flow structure mirrors his earlier aggressive work, but the production is completely different. Instead of traditional boom-bop or trap beats, this track allegedly uses industrial sounds, distorted guitars, and what some describe as horror movie ambiance. If accurate, that represents Cole merging his lyrical aggression with the dark atmospheric production from the first track. He's creating a cohesive sonic universe where death and violence exist together.
People are also analyzing what wasn't said on these leaked tracks. Cole doesn't mention his label, doesn't thank collaborators, doesn't reference his Dreamville family. That absence speaks volumes. Either these tracks are so personal he wanted to create them entirely alone, or there's been some behind-the-scenes tension that forced him into isolation. Industry insiders have been suspiciously quiet, which usually means NDAs are involved or people are scared to comment publicly. The deeper you dig into the evidence, the more it looks like Cole orchestrated this entire leak. Think about it. In an era where music leaks are increasingly rare due to better digital security, a project this important accidentally gets exposed? And not just exposed, but exposed to Jay Blackman, who's known for viral coverage. And the leak happens exactly when album rollout season typically begins. The coincidences stack up too perfectly. Some conspiracy theorists online believe Cole and Jay Blackman are working together, that this entire surveillance narrative is kayfabe, professional wrestling terminology for scripted reality. They claim Cole needed a way to leak controversial material while maintaining plausible deniability, so partnering with someone known for exposing industry secrets creates the perfect cover story. Whether that's true or paranoid speculation, the theory has gained serious traction, with over 89,000 people discussing it across social media platforms. What's undeniable is the cultural impact. These leaked tracks have generated more genuine conversation about artistic integrity, mental health, and legacy than any official release this year. Cole might have accidentally or intentionally discovered that mysterious, controversial leaks generate deeper engagement than polished marketing campaigns. If that was a strategy, it's working. If it wasn't, he's learning that lesson in real time. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Jay Blackman declared something that has the entire industry shook. He announced full-scale surveillance on J. Cole moving forward. Every tweet, every Instagram story, every public appearance, every breath. Blackman literally said on camera, "If he blinks, we're already there recording it." The streets are calling it Jay Blackman Watch, and the music industry is calling it straight panic. This isn't the first time Blackman has put someone under this level of scrutiny. His track record includes exposing fake relationships, leaked DMs, and industry plans before anyone else confirmed them. His methods are controversial, but his accuracy rate is disturbingly high. When Blackman targets someone, information starts flowing from places nobody expected. Former assistants suddenly remember stories. Studio engineers anonymously share session details. Even casual acquaintances start talking. For Cole, this creates a bizarre situation. He's naturally private, rarely engages in drama, and built his career on being the anti-celebrity celebrity. But now he has someone actively working to expose every move he makes. That pressure could force Cole deeper into isolation, or it could push him to lean into the chaos and use the surveillance as free marketing. Some fans believe Cole wants this attention because it keeps people obsessed with his next move. Let's keep it real about the broader influencer and surveillance culture this represents. We're living in an era where privacy is nearly impossible for public figures. Everything gets recorded, everything gets analyzed, everything becomes content. Cole's situation is just the most dramatic current example, but every celebrity deals with this reality. The difference is most of them got famous after surveillance culture was already normal. Cole came up in an era where you could still maintain some mystery. There's also the element of other artists watching this situation closely. If Cole successfully reinvents himself through symbolic death and resurrection, expect a wave of similar concepts from other rappers feeling trapped by their established images. The music industry is notoriously imitative. One successful strategy gets copied and repeated until it's exhausted. Cole might be accidentally creating a template that becomes the dominant album rollout strategy for the next 2 years. Some industry observers are also connecting this to broader trends in hip-hop mortality and legacy. Multiple prominent rappers have died young in recent years. Others have retired early. The culture is collectively processing grief, loss, and the question of what actually matters beyond fame. Cole choosing to explore death symbolically rather than waiting for it to happen literally represents a kind of artistic therapy for the entire genre. He's forcing conversations that needed to happen, but nobody wanted to initiate.
Another side angle worth mentioning is how Cole's Dreamville label has been suspiciously quiet during all of this. Normally, label artists defend each other publicly, show support, and help control narratives. But Dreamville's social media has been basically silent. No statements, no clarifications, no damage control. That silence is loud. It suggests either they're following Cole's instructions to let the chaos unfold naturally, or they're just as confused as everyone else and waiting to see what happens next. Financially, this situation is fascinating. Album leaks traditionally hurt sales because people consume the music for free. But these tracks are apparently not the final versions. They're rough mixes, unfinished, missing elements. Smart fans know the official release will sound completely different. So instead of hurting sales, these leaks are functioning like advanced movie trailers. They're generating massive hype while leaving people hungry for the complete polished experience. If Cole and his team plan this, it's genuinely brilliant marketing disguised as catastrophe. There's also discussion about how this affects Cole's streaming numbers. His catalog has seen a reported 34% increase in streams since the leak dropped. People are going back through his entire discography looking for clues, references, and hidden meanings. Old albums are charting again. Deep cuts are getting discovered. The leak isn't cannibalizing his existing work, it's revitalizing it. That kind of outcome is exactly what struggling legacy artists dream about but rarely achieve. The psychological impact on other perfectionist artists can't be ignored either. Cole publicly wrestling with the weight of perfection gives other musicians permission to be vulnerable about similar struggles. Already, several artists have posted about their own battles with unrealistic expectations, creative paralysis, and the pressure to be flawless. Cole's breakdown, or breakthrough, depending on how you view it, is creating space for collective industry therapy. That ripple effect might be more valuable than the album itself. And this story is still unfolding with way bigger implications than just one artist's creative crisis. What we're seeing here is how the intersection of artistry, mental health, and surveillance culture is reshaping what it means to be a public figure in music. The bigger conversation is about the responsibility artists have to their own well-being versus the expectations fans place on them for perfect, meaningful output. When you constantly position yourself as the conscious voice of your generation, you're not just making music, you're becoming a symbol. And symbols don't get to be human. They don't get to have off days, make mistakes, or evolve in ways that disappoint people. Cole's situation is a wild example, but it's also a warning for anybody with a public platform built on being a specific type of person. The more rigidly you define yourself, the more painful it becomes when you inevitably outgrow that definition. The mental health implications are massive. How many artists are quietly suffering under similar pressure but don't have the self-awareness or creative outlet to process it publicly? How many are self-medicating, isolating, or heading toward genuine breakdowns because the industry doesn't create space for vulnerability? Cole choosing to explore these themes through art rather than ending up as a tragic news story represents a kind of harm reduction model for celebrity mental health. There's also the question of what happens to hip-hop legacy culture if more artists start symbolically killing their old selves to escape expectations. Does that devalue the concept of legacy? Or does it prove that real legacy is about evolution rather than consistency? These are philosophical questions the culture hasn't seriously grappled with because most legendary artists either stayed in their lane until retirement or died before they could reinvent themselves. The surveillance aspect raises concerning questions about boundaries between journalism and stalking. When does documentation become harassment? When does public interest justify invading someone's privacy? Jay Blackman operates in this gray area where his work is simultaneously valuable for exposing industry fakery and problematic for violating personal boundaries. Cole's situation is forcing a conversation about where those lines should be drawn. Looking ahead, the music industry is watching to see if Cole's strategy succeeds. If the fall-off becomes both a critical and commercial success, expect every major label to encourage their struggling legacy artists to attempt similar rebirth narratives. If it fails, it might cement the idea that artists need to stay consistent with their established brand, regardless of personal growth. The stakes are higher than just one album. This is potentially a turning point for how the industry handles artist evolution. For fans, the implications are equally significant.
Are we willing to let artists grow and change even when it disappoints us, or do we unconsciously demand they remain frozen in whatever version of themselves we fell in love with? Cole is essentially asking his fan base to kill their expectations alongside his old identity. That's a huge request that requires maturity and flexibility most fandoms don't possess. The response to this album will reveal whether hip-hop culture is ready for that level of evolution or is still trapped in nostalgia. So the ultimate question everybody's asking is, what does this all actually mean? Was this a farewell letter to hip-hop, a prophecy about the genre's death, or a ritual sacrifice of Cole's old identity before he unleashes something so revolutionary it rewrites the entire game? The speculation is absolutely out of control, and honestly, some of the theories are wilder than anything Cole could have planned. Some insiders claim the Falloff isn't actually an album in the traditional sense. They're saying it's an experience, something that combines music, visual art, and interactive elements that require fans to piece together the narrative themselves. If true, that would explain why these leaked tracks feel incomplete. They're not supposed to exist as standalone songs. They're fragments of a larger multimedia project that only makes sense when consumed as a whole. Other theories suggest Cole is planning to literally retire after this release, that the symbolic death is preparation for an actual exit from the industry. He'd go out at the peak of his creative powers, leaving fans wanting more rather than slowly declining into irrelevance. That kind of exit strategy is rare in hip-hop, where most artists keep releasing music until nobody's listening anymore. It would be bold, but it would also cement his legacy as someone who left on his own terms. Then there's the conspiracy that Cole is actually planning a joint album with Kendrick Lamar, and this whole rollout is misdirection. The theory claims both artists have been dealing with similar pressures, and they've secretly created a collaborative project exploring legacy, mortality, and artistic evolution. It sounds far-fetched, but stranger things have happened, and both artists have been suspiciously quiet about their next moves. The darkest speculation involves Cole's mental state. Some people genuinely worry that the death imagery isn't metaphorical, that he's processing something way more serious and using music as a cry for help. Mental health advocates online have been trying to get this message to Cole's team, urging them to check in on him, regardless of whether it's all artistic expression. That concern is valid, even if it turns out to be unnecessary. More optimistic fans believe this is Cole's liberation moment, that after years of carrying the weight of being hip-hop's conscience, he's finally giving himself permission to be messy, experimental, and imperfect. The album might intentionally include tracks that don't fit his established style, features with unexpected artists, production that challenges listener expectations, all designed to prove he's more than the box people built around him. There's also speculation about timing. Why drop this now? Some connect it to the current state of hip-hop, where authenticity is increasingly questioned, where AI-generated music threatens human artistry, and where viral moments matter more than artistic integrity. Cole might be making a statement about what real artistry looks like in an era of manufactured everything. His symbolic death could represent the death of authentic hip-hop, with his resurrection representing its potential rebirth. Financial analysts are even speculating about Cole's business moves. Some think he's preparing to leave his label and go independent, using this album as leverage to negotiate a better deal or complete ownership of his masters. The controversial rollout generates so much attention that labels would be desperate to partner with him, giving Cole maximum negotiating power. If that's the play, it's calculated genius disguised as creative chaos.
This isn't over, not even close. This is just the opening funeral bell of something way bigger that's about to shake the entire foundation of hip-hop. More details are dropping every single day. More clues are surfacing from people who've seen or heard pieces of what Cole's been working on. And reports are saying that Jay Blackman has even more footage that he hasn't released yet. Apparently, there are studio sessions, private conversations, and behind-the-scenes moments that could completely change how we understand this whole situation. Stay locked in, because the next chapter of this story could drop at any moment. Cole's official response is coming. The full album track list might leak. Other artists might start weighing in publicly. This is developing in real time, and you absolutely cannot miss what happens next. So drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think J. Cole is genuinely retiring from hip-hop, or is this the most elaborate album rollout in rap history? And here's the bigger question. Do you think the fall-off will live up to 10 years of expectations, or is Cole setting himself up for massive disappointment? Let me know what you're thinking, because these discussions are where the real insights happen. And be honest, does the symbolic death concept resonate with you? Have you ever felt trapped by who people expect you to be? Do you think Cole is brave for exposing this vulnerability, or is he being overly dramatic? The comment section is going to be wild on this one, and I'm reading everything you post. Make sure you smash that like button if you want more coverage of this developing situation. Hit subscribe, because we're tracking every single update, leak, and revelation until the full album drops. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing, because J Blackman Watch is officially active, and the next drop could change everything we think we know. I genuinely appreciate you for rocking with me through this deep dive. This story has layers that most people aren't taking time to explore, and the fact that you stuck around for this entire breakdown means you're really invested in understanding what's happening beyond the surface drama. Stay safe out there in these internet streets. Remember that everyone online is performing some version of themselves, and the pressure to maintain that performance can break even the strongest people. Be kind, be patient, and stay tuned, because the fall hasn't even started yet.